Hey y'all, hi. Wow, I just dyed my eyebrows and washed my hair at the same time, which is what I do when I'm down in the dumps and I need a little pick-me-up, and it always works. But I looked pretty normal and fierce to myself upstairs. And then I got down here in front of the lights and turned on the camera and I looked in the monitor and it was like, eyebrows. I guess it's fine. It'll balance out when I get more makeup on the rest of my face, which is what I'm going to do. In this video, I'm giving reviews of some makeup that's new. I finished filming a new makeup hot takes a couple of weeks ago, and then I was like, there are a number of things that I talked about that I think would be good choices for review. So I placed an order from Sephora. I have tested them out. These aren't total first impressions. It's like a good old-fashioned reviewing some makeup video, which if you happen to be new to my channel, let me explain, I do from time to time, interspersed though with other types of content, some more essayistic, some more directly about conscientious consumerism, aesthetics at large, etc. And before we get into it, I just want to say, I think the Sephora sale is around now. Like, it might even be right now when this video is going up. If that is the case, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. I don't pay attention to the Sephora sale anymore. I just read a comment today that was like, oh, the sale's coming up, blah, 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 or saw it on Instagram or something like that. I don't shop the Sephora sale. I feel like it's much better for me if I make all of my own decisions about what I'm reviewing, which is what these purchases are, and about what I buy for myself, totally just in the vacuum of what's best for me and not influenced by like the feeling of getting a steal, getting a good deal, saving money, which I feel like is never actually true when it comes to the Sephora sale and sales like it. Those sales caused me in the past always to spend more money, not to save money. So sale, no matter how I've ever sliced it, has always been kind of a lie. And because of that, I don't make Sephora sale content like sale recommendations, etc. And for a long time, I made videos about surviving the sale without overspending. So I will link the playlist to all of those videos. There are a lot of them. They built up over the years. I'll link the playlist to those videos in the cards. If the sale's on right now or it's coming up and you feel yourself snowballing towards something that might not be healthy in terms of spending, and the type of video that I am about to film is actually not going to be the best content for you, and you might prefer that content, just go ahead and click away and watch those instead. But if you're just here to hang out and hearing what I have to say about these couple pieces of makeup is going to brighten your day, then let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. All right, first up, the highly requested, and I just realized, a little ASMR for your nerves. This is the Danessa Myricks Groundwork palette. I really should just start an ASMR channel. It's beautiful. So a lot of you, so many of you on that new makeup hot takes asked me to review this. And a lot of you said you thought I would like the other one better, the first one, which came out when I was on maternity leave. And that's why I didn't know about it. That's why I thought that this was the first one when I saw it on Trend Mood when I was filming that video. I understand why you would say that about the brown, but when I looked at them side by side, I thought that I would like this one better because what attracts me about this is the prospect of using it on lips and cheeks as well as eyes, because I make up my cheeks and my lips more frequently these days than I do my eyes. And I think I remember feeling like the browns in that palette, I can't remember now, and of course I didn't bring my phone down here because as we've established, I like leaving it behind. Maybe a bad choice for my work, but here we are. I think I remember feeling like the browns leaned a little orange or something. It didn't attract me. I didn't feel like it would have the same use value. But this has so many, and as you can see, I've only really dug into these two colors, but so many shades that are really in my palette for lips and cheeks, meaning that they are not too primary of pinks and reds and mauves. They're like putty-like. A lot of these shades are various shades of putty, I feel. And just in case you need to know, on my pointer finger here is the powder from Crush. My second finger is the putty from Smitten. Third finger is the putty from Allure. And the fourth finger, my pinky, is the powder from Adorn. And I just kind of swatched around randomly to give you a sense. And you know, it's not unusual to find a palette with these types of shades in it, but it is relatively unusual to find a palette that has such pale versions as these palest ones, and that has versions of these pinks and reds that are so grungy. Just in terms of the undertones, just relatively mucky. And that's what makes them workable for me. Because things that are too primary, that don't have enough gray mixed in them, they just look garish on me. They're too contrasty, too strong. I'm gonna swatch some of the darker shades just, again, to give you a taste. Here's the putty from Lovesick, the powder from Bliss, the powder from Evermore, and the putty from XO. So really pretty burgundy browns, like browns that are warmed up with red instead of being warmed up with orange. I love to see it. So color-wise, it is so beautiful. I gasped when I opened it up. I just think it's really, really beautifully done. I will give you the very brief kind of good, bad, and ugly as a result of my having toyed with it a little bit. So put it on my eyes and cheeks a couple of times. But as you saw, I just dipped into a couple of shades. I haven't like used it comprehensively and figured out how all the shades work together, et cetera, et cetera. This isn't a deep dive. It's just like a report back after having it for most of a week. The good, besides the color range, is that it's easy to work with. These formulas, pretty easy, especially the powders. I find them really easy to work with. And the pigment shows up really beautifully on the skin. And I really like the way that the colors look on. It's not just how they look in the pan, but the way that the colors look on. The bad, I don't really like this putty formula. It reminds me of the one Natasha Denona formula that I always struggled with, which is the putty Natasha Denona, the kind of cream to powder. I can't remember what Natasha calls it, but I remember that peacock blue shade in the gold palette was that formula, and it's shown up in several of her palettes. I think you can see because of the way that my finger has dented it and I've been able to sort of push it around. You can see what the texture is, and if you're familiar with those Natasha Denona palettes or you've encountered this putty before, it's like pushing it around like that. Not very much pigment comes off. It's not a cream. It doesn't melt. That's what it is. Like it doesn't melt. It doesn't have any kind of oil in it or emollients in it. It's just this sort of dry Play-Doh feeling thing. And it's not impossible to work with. Like I said, one of the pros is that every time I've tried to use this on my eyes, the looks have come out fine. It blends out just fine. Another thing it reminds me of is one of those Lisa Eldridge formulas. Lisa Eldridge has come out with some eyeshadow formulas that are kind of like this. So it seems like a thing that's just going around these days. It's not satisfying to me. I sort of don't understand how much picks up on the brush. It's hard for me to really get a gauge. Even if it does work on the eyes effortlessly and seamlessly, it doesn't feel very satisfying to use because there's not that tactile, interactive experience. It's like I'm pushing my brush into some Play-Doh and just picking up the dye from the Play-Doh. It's kind of like how it feels. I think some people really love it. And I know that some people love that Lisa Eldridge formula, like loved it and felt like it worked better for them than any eyeshadow ever. And it was way easier to use and looked better on the eyes and all of that stuff. And I'm sure that those same people would have the same feelings about this. I don't care for it. I like things to be a little more satisfying tactily and in a different way. And I had high hopes for this, that it would be a little bit more emollient and waxy, especially for like the cheeks and lips. So that's a big letdown. It means that in spite of its incredible beauty, I don't feel like opening this all the time and using it. And that's part of why I didn't test it as much leading up to this video as I otherwise might have done. But I do think that that is truly partly a matter of personal preference. I think that I don't prefer this formula just in the same way that I don't prefer like lip balms in one of those squeezy Blistex shaped applicators, because I just like having one that's solid that you twist up, because it's just what fits the best with my personal way of interacting with pieces of makeup. So it both is and isn't a criticism, or it's a drawback for me, but not a criticism, I think. And then the ugly, I said I was going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, there's not really an ugly. However, one of the days that I used this, I did a pink eye look with it and I didn't like it. I really, really don't like how pink eyeshadow looks on me right now. What I loved though was these colors on my cheeks. Every time I use them on my cheeks, I found it very easy to put on the eyes. It was effortless to do, and in a vacuum, the look was pretty. I just am in a moment of my life, apparently, when pink eyeshadow is the last thing that I want to see myself in. So let's see what I can do that's not that. Maybe this putty from Bliss. It's like a little more burgundy and not so pink. So see how I'm getting sort of a watercolory wash of the color that ekes out of the putty, but I don't feel like I've really picked up the product itself, like the substance. I feel like the substance substance is transferring sort of a slightly damp, slidey color onto my finger, and then I'm transferring that onto my eyes. It's interesting, and it is effective. Like, look what and this is just how it always was with the Lisa Eldridge. Look what a seamless, well, it doesn't quite, I haven't worked hard enough yet. But, you know, I'm essentially just finger painting. I'm like sliding it around on my lids with my finger, and I've been able to get a relatively soft blend. You know, I like that look that I didn't try too hard. I'm not trying to make it look airbrushed, but a lot of eyeshadows, if I did this with them with my finger, it would be really patchy. And this is not, it's like workable. That's pretty great. It just doesn't make me want to do it more. It doesn't make me want to keep doing it. I'm going into one of these browns, the powder from Evermore. Okay, so I used the powder from Evermore and I used the putty from XO, which is the darkest shade, with the base of the putty from Bliss all over, and tried to build some depth in the outer corner, tried to line along my lash line a little bit and put a little bit on the lower lash line. And this is what it ended up looking like. You know, I'm not going for something super high impact. I am looking for something a bit imperfect, kind of slapdash, didn't try too hard. And I've ended up with this quite watercolory, soft look. And I like that. For me, I like that, but I could feel as I was doing it that it wasn't going to build more than this. The powder layers pretty well on top of the putty, but then going back with putty, like to line my lash line, it was hard to get much payoff even with the darkest shade. And so even though for me, for daily wear, I'm kind of happy with what I ended up with, as I was trying to put it on, I kept thinking, well, this looks fine, but if my skin were much darker, it would be potentially quite frustrating unless I was looking for a super, super subtle look. And you know, I am looking for a subtle look, but I feel like with this application, the darker my skin was, the subtler it would be. So if I were looking for an even more subtle look than this one is on me, then yeah. But that reminded me that Amira commented on that video when I talked about this in New Makeup Hot Takes, saying that she had ranked the first Groundwork last in her palette ranking from 2023. And I can't exactly remember. She wrote in her comment, I'll pull it up, I'll find it, and I'll put it up on the screen. There just isn't a lot of variability between dark and light in terms of the stroke that you can get or the buildup that you can get with the putty formula specifically. On the eyes specifically, I think that the putty formula is really nice for cheeks, and I'll come back to it in a minute. Actually, no, it's Groundwork. I'm gonna do it and then we'll layer other things on top of it because it's groundwork. It's like laying the groundwork for other things. So another thing, it's like, it's hard to get off my fingers. I'm using micellar water and it's still, my fingers are like dyed with the pigment. There are a lot of little things where I'm like, so one thing that I've loved in the time that I've been testing this is the putty from Allure as a blush. That sort of staining quality that the formula has, I feel like is very flattering on the cheeks. I'm gonna put that on my lips too. Yeah. And actually, just out of curiosity, I'm going to mix it with the palest one. I mean, that's cool. That's cool. And it's holding its own, even though the color of the Crush putty is lighter than my lips. It's cool. So here's what I think. The idea being here that these colors, which aren't emollient, aren't really anything but sort of, it feels like pigment staining parts of my face. If you think of them as groundwork, almost like doing an underpainting of color to then put more texturally satisfying products on top of, and you really think of it as a full face palette, then I understand more the choices. I understand more the formula. As a palette that's mostly going to be used on the eyes, I think you might struggle like Amira did. And I'm not going to be able to think of it like that going forward. I really think I'm going to be thinking of this as like a palette of blushes that can be used on the eyes and cheeks. That's how it makes the most sense to me. But it remains to be seen whether I'll really use it that much. That's frankly how I'm feeling at this moment. Even though I think it looks pretty cool on my lips, they're feeling really dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the lip product. YSL Loveshine. I have been on a journey with YSL. I've been on a journey with YSL lip products, and the most recent stop on that journey has been this. They re-released their old, I guess, sort of tinted lip treatment product. I can't remember what it was called, but they re-released it as the Loveshine lipstick, which is supposed to be less pigmented than Candy Crush, Candy Glaze. So it's less pigmented than Candy Glaze, but also a little bit less thick and goopy, like a little more of a thin balm layer. And of course I was like, I have to try it because I'm still searching for that very lightly pigmented but super nourishing lip balm of my dreams. I got the shade 202, which is, I think, advertised as a taupe of some kind. And I actually do really love the shade. When I put it on and tinker with it and then I go about my day, when I catch sight of it, I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful color. It's kind of like a deep berry taupe, but it has those undertones that make it work. On my lips right now, Now, obviously, it's mixed a little bit with the Danessa Myricks, but the thing is, it's pretty pigmented. When it first arrived and I put it on, I was like, ugh, because it is supposed to be like the more tinted one of the YSL range. On me, it still just reads like a lipstick, even when I don't have it mixed with something with some other pigment underneath. I do really like the color though, so I keep reaching for it and putting it on and then kind of blotting it down and sort of integrating it with my lips some. For the sake of the video, actually, I'm gonna take this off and reapply just the lip product so you can see what it looks like when it's not mixed with a bunch of other stuff. You can see why I like the color, right? It's a very wearable, rich neutral, but it definitely looks lipsticky. So I've been like blotting it down like that and wearing it in a little bit more natural way. But the formula, because it's like thinner and harder and slicker than candy glaze, it doesn't really hold its own, doesn't feel like a thick, nourishing layer. It just sort of falls off the map a little bit in every direction in terms of what I'm looking for. So if you're looking for something that is a bit more pigmented and also a little bit less, if you don't like that goopy sort of gloss stick type of product, that's what candy glaze is. If you don't like that, you want something a little more like an oil stick, like a glazy, thin, slidey oil stick, then Loveshine's way better than candy glaze for you. I will still, I think, keep it around and wear it. For the first time in my life, I got the impulse to like melt makeup down and mix it together because I feel like this mixed with the clear candy glaze would be my perfect YSL lip product. They're so goopy, I might not even need to melt them down. I could just like squash them and mix them together, pack them back into one of the bullets, and then maybe put it in the fridge to help it solidify. I don't know. Stay tuned. I've got to get some mascara on. And here's what I have. This really is like that exact new makeup hot takes come back to haunt us. This ridiculous business. I'm going to put it on and then I'm going to tell you how I feel because I have tried to wear this / worn it several times. I have actually, I have data. So for science, there's just what is essentially one quick coat on my left eye. For those of you who just apply one quick coat of mascara and don't spend a lot of time sculpting and building it, that's what you'd get from this. And that's essentially what I would call 2 quick coats, although I didn't dip the wand back in. I just went back onto the same eye with the same wand and continued to build after stopping to show you 1 quick coat. And that's after taking some time, dipping the brush back in, taking some time to build and kind of see what it can do. Something a bit more intense, a bit more editorial. It's very buildable and, you know, the results are relatively impressive. I don't have the patience anymore to like keep going and going beyond this. It didn't take much though to get to this point. Let me get the other eye caught up and then I'll check in. Okay, there it is. When you take the time, the results can be dramatic. And I'll tell you first what I've come to respect and like about this. I do have a lot of appreciation for REFY as a brand and the way that things are formulated. I think that the formulas are very, very carefully, thoughtfully designed with specific purposes in mind from REFY in general. And often the packaging and the formulas are designed synergistically and kind of innovatively, but again, with really specific results in mind. And so that makes it kind of a hit or miss brand for me because if the results that the formulas are designed for and the packaging that's designed to support that, if those are my same goals, then it's really incredible. As with the lip gloss and the brow products and a couple other things, the blush, the cream blush. I mean, some of what REFY does is just like some of my favorite makeup. But sometimes the formulas and goals are so specific that I said I was going to tell you what I like about it, but I'm sort of giving you the full review right now because I have to give the second half of what I was just saying. Sometimes it's so specific that it kind of boxes out broader goals. And in this case, I think that might be what's going on. If I go for what it's going for, which is, you know, these beautiful lashes, it's incredible. And it's the formula and packaging synergy thing in that the formula is very buildable, very lengthening. You can just continue to kind of draw out your lashes longer and longer and longer. And then it's kind of waxy instead of drying like super crunchy and stiff. It stays a little waxy so you can continue to comb through and build, comb through and build. And the weird wand shape is essentially like a makeup artist's mascara comb, like a really stiff, tiny comb to comb through your lashes. So as you're making them longer, the comb is also spreading them out, teasing them apart and making them more fanned out instead of sticking together, which is really great. And it's a very effective tool at doing that. So you end up with these very long, lush, but feathery, fanned out lashes. And I really like that. And the waxy formula enables the already mascara mascara lashes to stay nubile enough to be open to that treatment. So it is a really well-designed product, works really well. However, it takes a long time. It's not like a quick, throw it on and go mascara. It takes some time. You have to really be dedicated to the cause, and I'm not always dedicated to that cause these days. And just doing a quick coat, I mean, it does look good, but it's not as easy and gratifying as it is to do a quick coat with other types of mascara wands. It's a little awkward. There's a learning curve with it. It's almost impossible to use that wand, in my experience, to apply mascara to the lower lashes. Luckily, I'm not putting much mascara on my lower lashes these days anyway, but know that. And then have I poked myself in the eye with it? Yes, several times. It's just like really hard not to poke oneself in the eye. So pros and cons. I think it's doing exactly what it is supposed to do, but pros and cons. It also wears well throughout the day. It doesn't crumble, doesn't smudge, washes off easily. I mean, I have tested it enough to know that all of those things are true. I think for the most part, it's a win. It's very niche. It's very specific. Lastly, here's what I have. Glossier Swept. I did not get sale because one of you left an extremely detailed comment on that new Makeup Hot Takes video about Sale, which is the lightest of the new Glossier bronzers. In short, saying that it did lean a little bit orange. And I just can't even go within 10 feet of that. If someone even thinks it might have a touch of orange in it in a past life, like I can't, it's a no for me. But that same person in that same comment said that Swept, which was the one I had my eye on from looking at the listing, as being quite taupe, like quite gray. Swept is like the Glossier cloud paint version of Gucci, A Royal Scandal. And that was all you had to say. I was like, okay, that's the one for me. That is the cream blush actually I've been dreaming of. I mean, it's a bronzer, but it's in the cloud paint formula, which is one of my favorites of all time, and in a color that I like even more than I ever liked. Look at that. A color I like even more than I ever liked Dusk, which at the end of the day was a bit orange as well. So this is one of the middle shades, and it's a lot browner and a lot grayer. I mean, come on. Especially on top of that, the groundwork that we did. It's just nothing beats cloud paint for ease of use, for the way that it blends into the skin and leaves that slightly dewy, juicy look behind. What I know I'm going to be doing with this is putting it all over my eyes, because that's what I used to do with Dusk as well. Just cheeks and eyes, like with a brush. Yeah, this feels like a true paint, like an all-purpose face paint in a dream color for me. So I'm really excited about that. Weirdly, that's the win of the video, I feel. I say weirdly because Glossier, I don't know, I mean, what they ever did well, they continue to do well. But I have had such a long and tumultuous relationship with Glossier as a makeup consumer and as a makeup reviewer that I think at this point they feel a little played out to me. It's like no matter what they do, it doesn't excite me as much as seeing what other brands do. Like I was way more excited about Danessa Myricks' Groundwork. I'm more excited to see what she's doing. I'm more excited to see what REFY is doing these days than I am to see what Glossier is doing. This is a product that's going to be like sitting front and center on my vanity every single day for probably the next several weeks because I feel like I can do everything with it. I don't know if it's marketed as being like an eyes, lips, and cheeks, but it's definitely that for me because it's this wonderful watercolory formula that sinks into the skin and pretty much sets down without being too glossy or too matte, without being crusty. It doesn't crease in my eye creases. It's just the best. And for me, this is by far the best color it's ever come in. And I feel like it ended up rescuing what was veering a bit into pink territory. Like the whole look was veering a bit into pink territory. And I feel like Glossier Swept really grounded it in my preferred palette and kind of brought it back down to earth, to something very wearable. Yeah, I was not feeling like myself. I was floating away and now I feel like myself again. So that is it. Some simple, fun trying of new makeup, reviewing of new makeup that I've been trying. Some hits, some lukewarm responses. I would say we didn't really have hits and misses. I feel a little lukewarm towards Groundwork. I feel lukewarm towards the YSL, and I feel lukewarm. I respect the REFY mascara. Okay, I respect it. And you know, the Glossier new cloud paint is a hit. Once again, in the face of the Sephora sale, a reminder to check yourself before you wreck yourself if that's something you need to do, and a reminder to check out the playlist of my sale survival videos if you think that will help you. Thank you for being here, and as always, don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world. I think we got it.